Hi, it's Steve. Today we're going to show you how to change the temperature control on your refrigerator, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a 1/4 inch nut driver, a small flat blade screwdriver, and maybe a pair of needle nose pliers. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, since we will be working near some electrical circuits, we'll need to unplug the appliance, and then we'll want to remove any of the items that are on the upper shelf. Just remove those and set them aside for a while. Well, next we're going to remove 2 1/4 inch hex head screws that are at the front of this control housing, and just support that housing as you remove the last screw. And just let it tilt down. Now on the right hand side on the freezer control there is a plastic arm that goes towards the back, and we'll need to disengage that. So turn the control all the way clockwise and then just pop it off that little T-pin that's on the control. Now next we can just remove 2 little pins at the back. Now next we'll just pull that whole housing forward and disengage 2 little pins at the back. That will expose the 2 wire harnesses. Now the one that goes up into the ceiling, there's a locking tab on the bottom that we just need to pull that away from the connector to release it and unplug it. Now the 2 wire one, we may need a flat blade screwdriver just to separate that a little bit. There is a locking tab on the side of it. Once we've disengaged that, we can take that whole assembly out and we'll set it on a suitable work surface where we can change out that control. Now with that control assembly on a suitable work surface, the first thing I've done is remove the light bulbs so that we don't damage those. And our next step will be to just peel back this little bit of foam tape on the capillary tube end. So just take a flat blade or a putty knife and just gently peel that adhesive away from the plastic housing and just peel back a little piece of it there. We're going to flip that assembly over and then just carefully spread those little tabs enough that we can pop that little round plastic portion out through and then just pop it out of that opening. Now you can slide that out of the curl on the end of that capillary tube. And we're just going to remove that capillary tube from the little channel at the bottom. Now next we'll take our needle nose pliers and we'll pull that ground wire off the terminal, as well as the 2 wires on the end of the control. Now with those removed, just pull them out of the way. Now on this side you'll note that there's a little plastic tab that hooks onto that metal bracket. So we can just pull that housing towards the center a bit and that will release that tab. We can pull it out through the opening on the opposite side and remove the control with the knob. At this point you can pull that knob off of the old control and we can discard it. So next we'll take the new control and want to very carefully unravel that capillary tube. Just use caution that we don't get any sharp kinks in that tubing. We'll install the knob onto the control first. And you'll note that there is a notch cut out in that square hub on the knob that will fit over the narrow end on the control itself. So next we'll slide that knob and control assembly into the housing, pop it down into place, and engage this tab on the center, and that will hold it there. Now with the controller knob firmly set into the housing, we'll next reconnect the wires to that control. We'll start with the ground wire. We want to make sure that we keep the capillary tube ahead of that wire harness. And just make sure that those terminals fit tight, and if they don't, take your needle nose pliers and just give them a slight little crimp. Install the 2 wires on the control itself. And again, make sure they're nice and tight. And next we'll take that capillary tube and we're going to put just a little bit of a loop in it and tuck it down into the knob area. And then form a little bend over the lip. And then lay it down in beside the defrost timer. And then we'll put the weighted end of it through that opening on the back side here. You find it's a little easier if you line that up so that the end that the capillary tube feeds into is on the left side. Tuck that down into that opening. Line up that tube with the little saddle. We'll line up that tube with the little clips on either side. And just carefully peel that foam tape back out of the way, and then we're going to drop that cylinder down into the little clips. And we want to make sure that we just put enough of a bend on that capillary tube that we can clear those little tabs, and place that foam tape over the open. Again, make sure that we have that laying nice and flat. Make sure there's no interference with the knob itself when we rotate it. And that the wire harnesses are free. We can now reinstall the bulbs and put the assembly back in the refrigerator. Now when installing the housing back into the refrigerator, there's a couple of little hooks at the very back here that will engage 2 little slotted openings that project down from the ceiling. We need to make sure that both of those are set firmly into those 2 tabs. And as well, we need to first engage the freezer slide piece onto the freezer knob. So we'll start with that. Just fit it over until it hooks in, and we'll pull it far enough forward that we can line up those 2 little hooks at the back, and it should hinge on those. Now next we will reconnect the wire harness. Make sure the little locking tabs engage. Same with the one for the ceiling. There is a single tab on the bottom. And just carefully lift the whole assembly up until it sits flush on the ceiling. And then we'll install the 2 screws. We'll set the controls to mid-range on both sides. We can replace the items on the upper shelf. We're now ready to reconnect the power, and our repair is complete.